Okay, I am now move that off the screen as well. Okay, so quick refresh on replication that Gareth ran through last week. So replication is made up of a publisher, a distributor, and a subscriber. From the subscriber, you've got a log reader agent. That log reader agent is reading the transaction logs that is being written to on the publisher side of things. When it reads the transaction log, it's then interrogating you, saying, is this to do, because inside the transaction log is basically the insert, out and update and delete commands. It's actually in two parts. It writes a delete and an insert for an update, delete only for a delete, or an insert only for an insert. Pairs, they're written as pairs.
We've lost you. We've lost you for a minute.
You lost my... Okay. Let's try again. Can everyone hear me? Yep. I'm getting nothing.
Yep.
Sorry, I think it was because I started the recording, it cut in and grabbed my audio. I'll try that again. Refresh of replication from what Gareth was saying last week. It's made up of a publisher, a distributor, and a subscriber. There's a log reader agent, which is always running to read the logs that are being written on the publisher. On the publisher, it actually writes down a paired changes. So for every insert, there is an insert instruction. For every delete, there is a delete instruction. An update instruction to a table, what it actually writes is a paired. It does a delete and then an insert in terms of the transaction log. The log reader agent will be reading that and saying, okay, is there one of those instructions, for every instruction, is it one of the articles that applies to the article in the publication to be sent to the subscriber? So it's continually reading those logs and pulling it into the distribution database. You then have a distribution agent. In the case of our setup, we're using push replication. The distribution agent runs from the distributor, and it's reading a batch of commands and to push out to the subscriber. What you can see over here on the right-hand side is the replication monitor. So that's the log reader agent, which is always running, and it's looking for any commands that have been written to, any instructions that have been written to on the publisher, and adding it to the distribution database. What is also usually running, depending on your configuration, is the distribution agent. This is the one which is actually sending the instructions to the subscriber. Now, the usual approach from Microsoft is to say, add your article to the publication.
Your audio's gone again.
Audio's gone again.
Oh, yeah.
Oop,
Yeah, you're
back again. I'll hold this thing with the hope that it actually maintains it. With Microsoft recommendations, you add the article into the publication, and then you rerun the snapshot agent. What the snapshot agent actually does is it pulls all the data out and it dumps basically files into BCP table, BCP files on the operating system, and then inserts an instruction into the transaction log for the distribution agent to say, pause what it's currently replicating out to the subscriber, pick up what's in the repl data folder, the snapshot, apply that first, then continue the replication to the subscriber. This is why when we had some failures, it was the application of the snapshot which was actually causing the problem, and it's a blocker on that all articles in that publication. One of the things is that when the publication is writing to the subscriber, it's done over a single thread so that it maintains transactional consistency. That's a single thread per publication per subscriber. So you can set up multiple publications, which gets asynchronous, but at the risk of potentially applying things in a wrong transaction, or not so much wrong, but a different transactional order to what it was written to on the publisher. You've got to be careful about how you do that. That's a really quick overview as to how replication works from a Microsoft perspective. Now I'm going to quickly jump into showing a process. Actually, before I cut into that, the way each of these agents actually work is it's actually jobs. So if we look at the jobs themselves, I've created a publication called Courier Integration, running from the Courier Integration database, which is actually being distributed back to my same data server into the replicated Courier integration. It makes it nice and easy for testing purposes. So going back to the jobs, now this is made up of 3 different actual jobs here. One of them here, that's the snapshot agent, which is usually by default set up to run once a day. Recommendation, what I recommend is disable that job. Only run it when you need to run it, because it does put load on the publisher server. It locks tables while it's doing its job. This next job here is the log reader. I just happen to know this. The easy way to find out, if you go into properties, you can see that it's a log reader. That's log reader reading from the publisher. There's only one log reader per database per publisher. Then you have the actual distribution agent. So again, you can see it as a REPL distributor. That's how you can tell what's what in terms of how it works. Okay, I have on this database, on Courier Integration, I have created 2 tables that I'm going to be using. One is a table using a snapshot and one table not using a snapshot. I'm just going to quickly show you the process for adding the table not using a snapshot, so the usual approach. Not using the GUI that was shown previously. What you would do is, when you right-click on the publications under replication on the SQL Server, you can generate scripts. Now, what this allows you to do is you can generate the create or drop. So this allows you to get the exact settings as to the way the current publication is set up. So if we open that in a new query window, we get this lovely block of text. Now I'm just going to quickly reformat this so that it's easy to read. A pre-prepared version. There we go, it's a bit easier to read. Now this has got a lot of stuff. Don't run it straight away, because you'll get lots of errors, because it also starts agents and things like that which are already running. Now the bit we care about is adding the article. So you can see that in this case there's an article here which is Courier, running from the Courier Integration publisher database. It's got a schema of controller and a storage object, which is the Courier. So you can see that Courier appears multiple times inside it. You can grab one of those. That becomes our template for adding an article on. So in our case, we want to replace this. So actually, we want to replace Courier with a table using snap, and it's running from the DBO schema. So I'm going to get rid of that because it's got the same name as the database. No. Did I use, unfortunately, Courier Integration? Just make sure it's going to the right one. I should have chosen a different table that didn't have the same name in it. That was my bad. So things to make note of here. One is that it's using a pre-creation command of drop. What that will do is it's telling replication to create the table by dropping if the table already exists, and also create any the 3 store procedures that it uses for actually writing the inserts, update, and deletes. Schema option is a whole bunch of flags and settings, which I can quickly show you some of that information just so you know. if I can open up, yeah, here it is. Running a bit slow because of the screen reading coding. I think it's a bitmap where it's basically each of these flags means that those are all the things that have been set for the schema options. In particular, the schema options of this one at the moment is that it's using the identity columns are scripted using an identity property, replicates timestamps, and it basically adds on the not for replication properties to the article, which was an issue that we found. Okay, what it also does is it says sync type is automatic. What it basically says is as soon as there is an instruction in the distribution database for this article, look for the snapshot for that article. If the snapshot doesn't exist, don't apply that one. Continue past it. So if we run that, so make sure I'm actually in the right database rather than in master. Create integration. I should get the right scheme option. This is also a demo where I'm applying it real time because I want to show you how you actually create it and deal with issues. Because this isn't a demo where I've pre-prepared things. Well, I've pre-prepared some stuff to be honest, but I'm going to switch it to a slightly different schema. And this one. Okay. I've just changed that article to all because when you add a subscription, for some reason, when you generate the scripts, it'll generate the add subscription instructions individually and specify the article by name. However, when you're doing transactional replication, you actually have to specify all. All is not even you can't even do any others. Hence why it errored there. So, what we should find is in the replication monitor. If we go to here, a few details. Let's see. Okay, now if I go to table using snap, and when I run this one, so I've got a job running, which is inserting instructions into the table using snap table, so that we can see that actually new stuff is being arriving while we're writing this. Over here, I've got another one which says get me that table from the replicated Courier integration database. So you can see on the subscriber side, the table hasn't actually been created. Now, if I go back to replication monitor. What I can do is I can start the agent by just running the start agent. What this will do, there we go, it's running, and you can see that it's found a table using snap. It's locking the table while it's doing the snapshot, and now it's generated an actual snapshot file. Now, if I go back to here, we can see that the article information has now arrived. It's got a slightly different ID generation because there is a slight time difference between the publisher and the subscriber. It works nicely on a small table, but it does lock the source table. Okay, so that's a very quick demo of how to add it onto the pre-existing one. Now I'm going to take you through the process of adding it on when it's actually without using the actual snapshot. Okay. In Git, I've putting these instructions and I'm creating some templates, and I'll be creating some helper procs to help us generate this so that it becomes a it'll just be standards. Just run this, it'll generate the scripts for you, and then it's just there and applying it in the right order. So when you're going to add on an article, one of the things that you need to note is the process. What the process does in terms of the instructions to how replication works. We don't want to stop the log reader agent. The log reader agent is very important. It's putting instructions for every publication that has been written to that database. You can't stop that. But what we have the ability to do is, because it's a set of listed instructions, you can actually stop the distribution agent and say, for that one publication to that subscriber, don't write anything for the moment. This gives us a flexible element. So what we would do in terms of the process here, let's see if I can resize this screen so that we can see both at the same time. Here we go. Is we can do some pre-deployment steps. We're going to manually create the table ourselves on the subscriber and manually create the publications, the REPL store procedures on that. At the moment, I've handcrafted those REPL store procedures. I will create some procs for us to generate the REPL store procedures to help us use them, because there are some gotchas in there, and it's much better to have that generated rather than doing it by hand. Too easy to make mistakes otherwise. After that's been done, what we will then do is we'll stop the distribution agent from writing anything to the subscriber. Then we'll add the article onto the publication. At that point in time, the log reader agent is now queuing up any new instructions for that table and sending it to the distribution database. So they're waiting to be applied to the subscriber. We will then copy the data from the publisher over to the subscriber. Then we will tell the distribution agent to start up. Now, if we applied the standard REPL store procedures, at that point in time we would start getting some errors, because we will have inserted some records where the insert instruction is in the distribution database, or a delete and we haven't replicated that record because we deleted the delete instruction arrived before we did the DTS across. So there's some slight variations in the REPL procs. After that, we then just make sure everything's running nicely, but it goes through smoothly. Okay, so that's a go for you. So now the table I'm going to use for this is going to be the table not using snap. It's actually the very similar structure to the table using snap. So and again, just for your own info purposes, what you can see here is that I've got another job, or actually it's the same job, updating this one and inserting it to this one, and deleting some records as well. So simulating activity from the end user so that we can show that it's having the same effect. Very simple structure. Now, in particular, what we need to note is when we're creating the table on the subscriber side, we want it to be an int, we want it to have the primary key, but we do not want it to have the identity and not for replication. What we also don't want to have is any default constraints and only applicable indexes, so we can have a different schema. What we could also do is you need the primary key, but you can set up the appropriate clustering on the subscriber, and it doesn't need to match identically. It needs to match the use cases for the how we want to use it on the subscriber side. For reporting purposes, we might want to change the index structure. Okay, so I have previously generated this. So you can see the ID doesn't have the identity, not for replication, and otherwise it's actually the string structure. Purely for paranoid reasons, I frequently add a bit of code at the top which basically says if it already exists, rename it to something else. So, and I may well end up needing that simply because I've run a test of this beforehand. So I need to make sure, it's currently connected to, there we go. So I'm going to create that table, go ahead, go. Now the next step that I need to do, if we go back to the README, actually, to be honest, in the scripts I've put this nicely at the top, is to create the record store procedures. Now, the insert store procedure, if I was handcrafting this, I would go along, create the C1 through to C3, that's a column with an ordinal number, and then set up the insert procedure themselves. The difference between this and the standard auto-generated record store procedure is I've added this line, which basically says if the record already exists on the destination, don't bother to insert it. Otherwise we'll get a primary key violation, which will block replication. Because of the DCS, we may have already copied that insert across. And in the test, I'm going to make sure that's actually the case. So we'll go ahead and create that store procedure. The next one is an update store procedure. I'll quickly describe this one as well. It has some slight variations as well. We've got the varchar types, and it passes in nulls for all the C types, so the columns, and it also has a PK, being primary key, column 1, so which allows for a composite primary key, so you can have PK C1, C2, C3, etc. If there's more than one. What it also has is a bitmap, which has a bit setting to say which is the field that has actually been updated, so that it only applies the correct changes. That's because we use SQL update replication, which means that we send over smaller packets of data, uses less network bandwidth. It's made up of two parts, which are nearly identical. The main difference is this line here, which says, has the primary key column received an update? Has the update on the source been update to the primary key? Change it to a different number. In which case it uses the PKC1 to signify the original primary key, and the C1 to signify the new primary key value. That is separated from the usual one where you don't update the primary key, because if you include it in the statement, even if it doesn't do anything, it does extra locking on the subscriber side of things, and it can cause page splits in the clustered key. So it's a useful way to separate that out. So I'm going to dump that across as well and create that. Okay, back over. The delete one, it's actually much easier. It's just delete it. It only has the primary key parameters passed over to it. The main difference in what I'm doing in here in terms of difference is, by default, there is a error handling, which basically says if we received a delete instruction but we didn't delete anything, raise an error. I'm commenting that out because I don't want it to actually raise an error, because we're actually expecting it. Okay, I'll apply that across as well. Now that I've applied all the replication store procedures, the next step is we need to go back over to the publisher, and it's going to stop the distribution agent. So if I grab my stop distribution code, here we go. So we go back over to the publisher. So I'm back on courier integration. Now, the publisher it runs as a job, as I showed you before. So if I go back onto the jobs, we can see here the job, it's a rebel distribution, and that's a job name. So all we're doing is I grab that string and I put it into here, and I'm updating the job first to disable it, because I have seen people stop then disable, and in the time difference between that, the scheduled job, which says run every n seconds or every minute, restart it if it stopped, and SQL Server very nicely restarts it in between those steps, and they're sitting there going, but I stopped the job and I disabled it, why is it still running? So always disable your job first. Okay. I usually stick in if I run it together, wait for delay of like 10 seconds or something like that, just allowing for extra time. It's only a precaution. Me talking, it should be a sufficient enough time, and then I'm not going to stop. depending on the type of publication, as to the frequency, if it's continuous, it will be always running. If it might be set on a schedule, it might already be stopped, in which case you might receive an error saying, yes, ask me to stop a job that is already stopped. You can ignore that error. Just to show it, what we'll see is we'll refresh here. You can see that the job is no longer running. If we go over to Replication Monitor again, and we look at here, we can see that the job isn't running. And if we view the details, and we can see the process was successfully stopped as well. Okay, so now it's ready for us to add the article on. Now, this is a variation on the other one, so I'm setting it to the same schema option. The main difference that I'm doing is I'm in this one here, pre-creation command, I'm setting to none. That's saying when I'm sending it to the subscriber, do not, if there is a snapshot in existence, don't drop the object. Don't bother trying to create it. Actually error if it tries to apply the snapshot and the tables are there, or if the props aren't there, because we want to manually control this. What I'm also doing is extra one is on the subscription, also setting it to none, saying, really, I mean it, don't actually apply it. Don't include this in the snapshot as well. Don't mark this publication as needing a new snapshot, because it doesn't. So those are the two flags that are in particular. I've also told it to call the store procedures that I've given it. We could call these store procedures whatever we want to do. However, the standard format is SPMS, ins for insert, del for delete, up for delete, for update, the schema name, and then the table name. So just the general format we use. So if I've just spotted I've put this on the wrong publication, so I'll quickly change that. Okay. Except I've also left it in the database as well. There we go, I've added it on. Things to note here as well is when you're running this one here, which is as subscription, it'll do whatever you tell it to do and it won't error. So if I left that as the wrong server name, or as I have done here, I've left it as the wrong destination database name, it will quite happily try to do it. So make sure you pay particular attention to those. It is very easy to make mistakes, as I very nearly did then. So it's possible to clean it up, but it becomes a pain in the proverbial. This is also one of the reasons, from the security perspective, we should make sure our dev instances are not on the same VLAN or network as our live instances, because it is possible for us to end up, in applying the replication, applying it to live servers, which would not be a great thing. Okay. At this point, what we're doing is, if we go to the view details on this one, we will see that the commands are growing. It should be growing. There we go, growing there, as the log reader runs. And over here, if we go to here, we can see I'm writing stuff in. And if I write on this one side of things, I'm also receiving invalid object. I'm still receiving I did run the create on the right database, didn't I? I know. which I could have sworn that I ran the table scripts, but obviously I haven't. I'll re-grab that one. I need to find it on I think it's because I've done something weird. This is one of the problems with a live demo. You'll get to see me fix it as we talk. There we go. I don't know. I malformed that. I'll get rid of that one. Okay. There we go. There we go. The table's there. So we can see that the table on the destination doesn't have any information there yet. Okay. Now, just to show that there is a difference here, at this point in time, so we have got up to adding the article. Now we need to copy the information across. There's a variety of different methods we can use. We could set up a link server and copy the data to the subscriber, use the export wizard, which is SSASing or DTSing the information across. You can store a backup onto the subscriber side and copy that across and then look for any diffs. You can dump the table out as a set of instructions from the publisher and manually apply them. Quite a few different techniques. For this purposes, we're just going to use the export wizard. Okay. So, query integration, tasks, export. Okay, and I will wait for that to appear. Server, configuration, server, no, I don't want to connect to that one. Dev, and I want to go to the replicator career. Copy across, and it's the table not using snap. To apply it to, run it immediately. There we go. Now, because of when I ran it, what we should see is, I want to highlight something here, which is that there is now a difference. When I added the article on, we were at 201. We're now at 203, and so more commands have actually been applied to the subscriber because of the DTSing than were there when we added the article into the publication. So you can see that some have been inserted, updated and deleted. You can see the deletes because of the gaps in IDs in here as well. I delete, no it doesn't matter which ones I actually delete. Okay, so that gives us our article there. Now all we need to do is restart the agent on the distributor. So we go back over here now, and we would connect. So go back on the distributor, which is the publisher in my case, and we update the job to mark it as now enabled, and then we tell it to start up. At which point, we turn around and say we're running that, and we can see that it's running. We can view the details. Undistributed commands is now 0, and it's running away and it's applied 68 commands. Now, we go ahead, and if we run this one here, which is just to join the two queries together. We can see that both of them are now there. Actually, that's one slightly behind, so we'll run it again. There you go. It's now arrived. Didn't need to do the snapshot. It'll sit there just quite happily, just replicating whatever the instructions are. Because of the extra command which said don't even run the snapshot as well, if I go to application monitor again, if we wanted to, or if the job was scheduled to run, and we now ran the snapshot agent. Wait for it. There we go. It's complete. I'm going to say set. It's done, and it didn't actually try to generate because no subscriptions needed to receive any new articles as well. So it's safe for rerunning the snapshot as well. That ends the demo of how to actually add an article to replication without doing a snapshot. Very practical side of things as well. Okay, I'm going to stop the or attempt to stop this screen recording so I can actually hear people as well.
How do we